What up, world? Welcome on all to another episode of the Ochoa, presented to you in partnership, as always, with SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. My name is RJ Ochoa. You know me, of course, from BTB and from right here as your humble host on the Ochoa. It is Thursday, November 26, 2020. We hope all is well wherever you are. We hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and we want to wish you and yours a very happy Thanksgiving holiday. Hopefully you were fed. Hopefully it was delicious. And hopefully what happened with the Dallas Cowboys didn't derail your happiness and your joy too much. It is our official Dallas Cowboys postgame show here at Blogging the Boys. The Dallas Cowboys losing in embarrassing fashion to the Washington football team, 41-16, the final score. Obviously the Cowboys bounced back last week and beat the Minnesota Vikings, and I think a lot of us, myself included, kind of thought maybe this is who the team would be moving forward. Maybe the squad would find a way to play with some passion, to play with some energy, to play with some oomph down the stretch and maybe win the NFC East. And to be fair, the Cowboys could still win the NFC East, but obviously that's made a lot more difficult by what happened on Thanksgiving afternoon. It was a very heavy day for the Dallas Cowboys, as we discussed in our live stream, our Cowboys Midweek Report on Wednesday night here on our YouTube channel. If you are watching live with us, make sure to subscribe to the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. Dallas Cowboys strength and conditioning coordinator Marcus Paul passed away on Wednesday at the age of 54. The Cowboys held a moment of silence before the game at AT&T Stadium. They had decals on the back of their helmets with his initials. The Dallas Cowboys coaches and staff members wore his initials on their caps. It was a very heavy week for the Dallas Cowboys, a week that was already very short in terms of process, in terms of preparation, because the Cowboys went from a Sunday game to a Thursday game, something they're well accustomed to, again, playing on Thanksgiving every year. The Cowboys, by the way, will play on Thursday next week as they visit the Baltimore Ravens, and we have some things to get into with regards to that contest. But let's talk about this game. We don't have a whole lot of highlights, but we have curated the ones that matter the most here for our post-game show. Let's talk about Randy Gregory's sack early on. Ended up with 2 sacks, his first multi-sack game of his career, a very impressive outing for him. Amari Cooper with the 54-yard touchdown from Andy Dalton. I think a lot of us at this point thought maybe this was the turning point. It was an incredible moment. We even saw some emotion from Andy Dalton at the end. Like I said, there weren't a whole lot of highlights from the Cowboys in this particular game. This kind of is the end of it. We do have one particular low light to discuss. Maybe this is what kicks off our venting sort of session. A fake punt that the Cowboys tried down by 4 points inside their own territory. Cedric Wilson, I have no idea what he's doing here. I have no idea what the best result here is. I actually want to play this one more time. Let's play this back one more time, this fake punt. Watch this again. Again, the Cowboys are down by 4 points. There's over 12 minutes left. Let's get this going one more time here. Give me a second. Here we go. The fake punt is, we'll get that going in one more second. Here we go. Fake punt. Second time around. I don't know what Cedric Wilson's doing here because, again, you're down by 4 points. There's over 12 minutes left in the game. You can very well still win this contest if you're the Cowboys, so I don't know why you're trying to get cute here. And ultimately, I think this is what plagued the Cowboys in a lot of ways against Washington, is trying to be way too cute. Mike McCarthy obviously hasn't been around for an enormous amount of time as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. This was his 11th game, and as we've discussed many times, he has faced an inordinate number of circumstances. Obviously, our entire world is dealing with inordinate circumstances. Obviously, Dak Prescott's been hurt. There were so many players that have already been hurt to this point for the Dallas Cowboys. This game started on the Cowboys' first offensive possession. They lost Cam Irving and Zach Martin, who was playing again at right tackle. It seems like Zach Martin may have re-aggravated his calf issue. We don't know what the status of him is going to be moving forward, but it certainly does not feel great at this particular moment. But the point is, the Cowboys lost their starting tackles just in this game, not in general. That's their second or third, however you want to look at this, maybe even fourth set of tackles that they've operated with so far this season. And they lose them on the first drive of the game. They have to go back to the Terrence Steele well, something that we thought the Cowboys were fortunately moved past. Again, not a dig at Terrence Steele, but he has not played well. And it has not gone well for them. And so in that respect, there's a lot of people, I think, out there, and I'm curious for your thoughts if you think Andy Dalton is a problem for the Cowboys. If you are with us live on our YouTube channel, let us know. I don't feel that way. I'm not trying to, give you the impression that Andy Dalton is an amazing quarterback, but I do think that Andy Dalton played well enough to win win on Thursday afternoon. I think that Andy Dalton was limited, certainly by the injuries that happened to the Cowboys offensive line, and I don't think that Andy Dalton was done any favors by the Cowboys coaching staff. Kellen Moore has certainly had big moments, and a lot of times some of these things, I think that people look at criticism and they say, well, you're going to criticize when it doesn't work and you're going to praise it when it does, and that's the nature of life in a lot of ways. But Kellen Moore got way too cute in this contest. Jalen Smith, goodness gracious, had an interception return that he almost housed, but brought all the way just about to the goal line, and the Cowboys in 3 plays lost 6 yards. And part of that sequence was the Cowboys tried to run the ball on first down. Please don't ever do that again. On second down, they tried to get really cute and really crafty and really creative, which I do applaud in theory, on a reverse type play to CeeDee Lamb. I don't know if CeeDee was going to throw it, but ultimately CeeDee Lamb lost yards. The Cowboys gave Andy Dalton, their quarterback, one try with, an opportunity with the game still well in the balance to try to strike. And he did throw a strike to CeeDee Lamb, and CeeDee Lamb has to catch that ball, and that's on CeeDee Lamb. But I think, why would you only give Andy Dalton one shot there? It's unfortunate. It's not fair. It's not great coaching. And that was kind of the story for a lot of this game. Mike McCarthy and his staff making some really questionable decisions, the fake punt among them. I know that Washington ended up scoring 41 points, but some of this was in garbage time. I do think this game was out of hand near the end, but I think the score makes it look just a teeny bit worse than it was, although in some ways the score isn't even as honest as it should be, because this was a really, really, really embarrassing performance for the Cowboys. And again, a long, season this has been for the team. Obviously a short week, obviously an incredibly stressful week and an incredibly emotional week. There are a lot of factors that should be included there, but there's, again, this looked like a team that had no idea what they were doing, and a team void of leadership, and a team void of plan, and a team void of purpose. And that's the troubling part. That's the troubling thing to see. We talked about it last week on the postgame show about how there have been legitimate signs of improvement and legitimate signs to believe in Mike McCarthy and his staff and his vision for the future. And we have certainly, we saw that in Philadelphia, even though it was Ben DiNucci. We saw that against the Pittsburgh Steelers, even though the Cowboys lost that game. Shout out to Garrett Gilbert, of course. We saw it against the Minnesota Vikings when the Cowboys managed to win, and it felt like they were making progress, right? It felt like, okay, the Philly game was everything went bad. We had a chance to catch our breath. Let's figure this crap out. And it felt like they figured it out to a small degree. And the Pittsburgh game felt like, okay, we have figured this out to an even larger degree. We're just up against the last undefeated team in the NFL, and you're not always going to win those games. And the Minnesota game felt like, okay, we're back from the bye. We've gotten some players back. We've stabilized a lot of ideas and a lot of practices, and we finally had an opportunity to take advantage to get a win, and that's why things happen. James Wilson on YouTube says, "Fly, Eagles, fly. Congratulations to Philadelphia Eagles are now no longer in first place in the NFC East." We'll see what happens on Monday Night Football if James is still feeling as excited as he is. A podcast network at SB Nation. The SB Nation NFL show is a podcast feed. You can subscribe. I'm all messed up about this Cowboys game, and we talk about a variety of things. I'll be recording with Brandon Lee Gouton from Bleeding Green Nation. We'll be talking about the state of the NFC East because it is basura, to be quite honest with you. Rashid Harrell says, one of the worst teams in the NFL, coaches and team stinks. This looked like one of the worst coaching staffs in the NFL. There's no question that the Cowboys are one of the worst teams in the NFL because they were 3-7 when this game started. But this coaching staff did not look like the group we saw against Philly, against Pittsburgh, against Minnesota. This looked like a group that had regressed. And it should be said again that they were dealing with an incredibly stressful, incredibly emotional, and an incredibly short week. There's a lot going on in the NFL and in the world right now. And so that's really difficult to kind of compartmentalize for any person in any walk of life. And perhaps that had a factor into the Cowboys just really not playing well and not looking organized, not looking functional. But the reality is that was simply the case. Let's see here. Rashid says, sorriest teams in the NFL, Jets, Dallas, Dolphins, Vikings. I guess it says the Vikings for losing to the Cowboys. Jaguars, Eagles, Falcons, Lions. Of this group, the Jets are certainly the sorriest team. The Dolphins, I don't think are that sorry of a team. The Dolphins have legitimate potential. The Dolphins might be a playoff team when it's all said and done, especially with the added wild card. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, how did the Vikings, because I'm not as down on the Vikings as a lot of other people are. How did the Vikings lose to this Cowboys team like 4 days ago? You know what I mean? Like, it seriously calls into question how bad of a team they are that they lost to this team that we saw on Thanksgiving Day. But yeah, I don't have a problem. Jaguars, far as Eagles, Falcons, Lions, yeah, they're all trash. The Lions were trash on Thanksgiving themselves. Both road teams getting the wins on Thanksgiving Day, so no home field advantage in that capacity. Haroof, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, says, this performance was flat out embarrassing. That fake punt was the capper to what's been a disastrous season. And again, I do think, you go back to that Pittsburgh game and that fake punt, or not even fake punt, but the fake on the punt that happened against the Pittsburgh Steelers was awesome. And a lot of the reason it was awesome was because it worked. And that's, again, the fairness or the unfairness of life or football, whatever you want to call it. But that was really cool. That was really awesome. But this fake punt, again, in that circumstance, and if you're watching on YouTube, let's play it again for you right here. If you're listening on our podcast, you obviously know the play. I don't know what Cedric Wilson's doing here. Is he supposed to throw it 100 knees wander? I mean, what's the idea? What's the play here? Because the Cowboys at this point in the game are only down by 4 points, and there are over 12 minutes left in the game. This will sound like a joke. This will sound hyperbolic. This will sound dramatic. This will sound like I'm trying to be funny. I'm telling you the God's honest truth. This is my absolute real thought. The only logical explanation for the Dallas Cowboys and that awful fake punt is that they gathered together on the sidelines and they said, crap, we won in Minnesota last week and we messed up our draft pick and we got to do whatever it takes to get back into the top 3. That's the only thing, because there is no logical, realm that makes sense. There's just not. And again, I'm a supporter and a fan of tricks and wizardry and being crafty. And we have seen that to a certain degree so far this season from the Cowboys. But I hate to be, there's a time and a place guy, but there is a time and a place. And that was not the time or the place. Just like the situation down near the goal line after the Jalen Smith interception was not the time or place for Kellen Moore to get super ridiculous in terms of, reverses and handing off to CeeDee and having CeeDee Lamb throw the ball. You know who should be throwing the ball when you're trying to score a touchdown? The best person who throws the football on your team, your starting quarterback, in Andy Dalton. And so I think that just happened a lot this game, and it was really unsettling. Xavier Sheffield says the coaching staff is so bad. Nate Wan says it's 100% leadership. I don't disagree with any of these things. Sergio Reyes says, who are you rooting for with our current position in the draft? At this point, I don't know. Like, at this point, I don't know that. I think if you marry yourself to a prospect right now, certainly with 5 games left in the season and the NFC East technically still very much alive, I think that, you get tunnel vision. So at this point, I'm trying to cast as wide of a net as I can. As you can maybe hear my dog in the background, he agrees. You want as wide of a net as possible. You want as high of a pick as possible, so you have time, because there's clearly going to be a lot of time to figure out who you want, what you want, and what the best course of action is. What I really want more than anything is for the Cowboys to have an ability to draft one of the top quarterbacks coming out, not because I think the Cowboys should draft one. Please, if you have not gotten the message by now, pay Dak Prescott. But I want a bounty of draft picks. That's what I want if I'm running the Dallas Cowboys. And so, that's what I want. That's priority number 1 for me as far as I'm concerned. So I hope the stars align in that particular capacity. Let's see. Haru says, I don't get that call whatsoever at that point of the game. Again, the fake punt. You're only down by 4. I can understand maybe if you're down by 10, if you're down by 2 scores, I can I can at least try to understand. Like, it's not an insult to my brain to begin to compartmentalize what you tried to do there. But down by 4 doesn't make any sense. And you know what was even worse than this? I mean, what was even more unacceptable, because now we're talking about a level of play and a level of coaching and a level of execution that is so unacceptable that it's embarrassing, because that's what this game was. This was an embarrassing loss on national television. This game, by the way, if you were somehow unaware, the Dallas Cowboys Thanksgiving Day game is generally the highest rated NFL game of the year. And you went out and you looked like a bunch of just guys and people and staff members that really don't care a lot, and gave that impression to the whole world. So congratulations to you. Congratulations to the biggest sports team in the world, I suppose. But you did this, and okay, so getting back to the point here, I got so lost in how upsetting this was. You go for this fake punt, so you have clearly established at this point in the game, with over 12 minutes to go, that you don't believe in actually punting, right? It is, at this point, I have to convert, I have to go get points. For whatever my reason is, whatever my logic, whatever my justification, I have declared, if I am going to have this type of fake punt on 4th down, that I'm not punting anymore. What happens the very next time the Dallas Cowboys get the ball? They punt after they don't get a first down. So how can you tell me the very next sequence, the very next offensive possession, the very next offensive series, when you don't get a first down, how can you say, you know what, guys, We better punt this ball away. Yeah, it's too tough. You know what I mean? We can't. And after Washington had scored. So at this point, you're no longer just down 4 points. You're down 11 points. So in fact, your sense of urgency should be heightened. You know what that says? It doesn't say you're playing for another down. It says you've quit. It says you've given up. It says you have folded. And it says you are ready for this game to be over so you can get out of here and stop having to deal with it, because that whole sequence was really just a catastrophe for the Dallas Cowboys coaching staff. Rashid Harrell says even the 4th and 1. Yeah, that's a great point. Early in the game, the 4th and 1. Look, I'm a fan, again, of being creative and being crafty and using different ideas and using different philosophies. And the Cowboys went for it on 4th down early in the game on their own side of the field. It was 4th and 1, 4th and very short. You know what you should do on 4th and 1? You should run the ball. You should QB sneak it. You should maybe, I don't know, use the guy that your owner, general manager, and president, Jerry Jones, referred to as the best player on the team just 6 days ago on the radio. That's right. Jerry Jones said last Friday on 105.3 The Fan that he believes Ezekiel Elliott is the best player on the Dallas Cowboys. I don't want to turn this into a bagging on Zeke session, but that is so far from the truth. The best player on the Dallas Cowboys left the game early on with a calf injury in Zach Martin. But so it's 4th and 1. Hand the ball off to Zeke. Have Andy Dalton just push forward. He's a tall guy. He's just got to stretch out and he gets that first down. What do you do instead? You try this, cute little route to CeeDee Lamb, and you can certainly argue that there was pass interference there, and there was an unnecessary roughness penalty on Dalton Schultz on the other side. You would have had offsetting penalty, so maybe you give it a try again, maybe you wise up, maybe you punt, I don't know. But the point of the matter is, do not do that. Do not overthink yourself. I don't want to bag on Kellen Moore either, but they spent a lot of time criticizing Mike McCarthy. This was by far Kellen Moore's worst performance this season as the Dallas Cowboys offensive coordinator. Kellen Moore got way too cute, and again, there are a lot of factors. This was a very heavy week. We've discussed all of that, and there is a legitimate line of logic to the idea that weared on the Dallas Cowboys as a whole, their coaching staff, their players, everybody associated with the organization. That is very fair and a very, very valid point. But looking at the football of all of this, Kellen Moore, I don't know what you're thinking on this 4th and 1. I don't know what you're thinking on the goal line possession after the Jalen Smith interception. I really don't understand what is the best thing that happens here if you are Kellen Moore and the Dallas Cowboys and Andy Dalton, etc. And I'm at the point where I feel badly for Andy Dalton, and I feel badly for Andy Dalton in the same way that I have felt badly for Dak Prescott, in the same way that I felt bad for Tony Romo before him. Andy Dalton had the really bad Montez Sweat interception late in the game that went back for a touchdown. Again, no defending that, bad throw, whatever. And again, at that point, the game was already lost. And again, you lose 41-16. There are a lot of mistakes. But Andy Dalton, I thought, mostly played rather well. If you're watching on YouTube, look at this Andy Dalton Amari Cooper touchdown. This is a 54-yard touchdown. Again, the ball doesn't travel 54 yards, but this is, I don't want to use the word dime casually. This is a dime to Amari Cooper. And Andy Dalton found a way to get that done. And I think that Andy Dalton played well enough to win. I think that Andy Dalton was unfortunate to have lost his starting offensive tackles. I think Andy Dalton had the misfortune of having a coaching staff that didn't exactly support him. I think that Andy Dalton had the misfortune of having a defense that, while they did have that turnover that was very powerful, again, that set up the coaching staff to fail Andy Dalton. Mostly this defense got nickel and dimed by Alex Smith. I hope that you don't mind seeing this game again, because at NFL Honors, when Alex Smith wins Comeback Player of the Year, there are going to be a lot of highlights from this game. All right, they're going to put together a highlight package like you've never seen of Alex Smith against the Dallas Cowboys. And so Andy Dalton really had absolutely no help in this game, and for that, I feel very badly for him. Sergio Reyes says, what do you think is the reason for Zeke's fumbles? We haven't even touched on this. Again, if you're joining us late on the YouTube live stream, welcome. This is our Dallas Cowboys postgame show that we do here on the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. Blogging the Boys, SB Nation's home for Dallas Cowboys content. I'm RJ Ochoa. You can follow us on Twitter. We are at Blogging the Boys, on Instagram at blogging.the.boys. Make sure you subscribe right here to the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. We do a lot of live streams. We do a lot of film reviews, breakdowns, recaps, discussions, things like that. We have a lot of things that we're working on all the time to please you, the valued viewer. So make sure you subscribe. We really appreciate those things. But Ezekiel Elliott has a fumble, second play of the first half. Dude, what is happening here, Ezekiel Elliott? And again, Jerry Jones saying last week that Zeke is the best player on the Dallas Cowboys in his eyes. What? How? Because again, I could probably, and I don't, who's better than Ezekiel Elliott? You tell me right now if you're watching. And let's include Dak Prescott for obvious reasons. Dak Prescott's better than Ezekiel Elliott. Zach Martin, Tyron Smith. I would put Lyle Collins above Ezekiel Elliott. Amari Cooper I would put above Ezekiel Elliott. I don't want to get super ridiculous at this point. I think Tony Pollard is flirting with that line right now. I think CeeDee Lamb is flirting with that line right now. I think Michael Gallup has floated above that line at different times earlier in his career. Michael Gallup with some costly drops last week. Didn't have a great moment early on in this game. But I mean, Ezekiel Elliott isn't even the best running back on the Dallas Cowboys right now. And I'm not trying to turn this into the bash Zeke session, but to say that is all that does is scream, I am trying to justify the contract that I gave Ezekiel Elliott. And the same way that I feel badly for Zeke, that I feel badly for Andy Dalton, I feel badly for Zeke. I feel badly for Jalen Smith because Jerry Jones has gone on the radio repeatedly at different times this season on 105.3 The Fan, and he will be on, I believe, he's normally scheduled to do Friday radio hits, so obviously with the Thanksgiving holiday, some of that's weird, but check out 105.3thefan.com. He should be on tomorrow morning, but Jerry Jones has gone out of his way to justify the Jalen Smith and the Ezekiel Elliott contracts, and all that does, and this is where, if you're going to be that person that speaks publicly, you have to read the room, and you have to know that what you say has an impact and has power and is going to be taken by Cowboys fans everywhere. And so all Jerry's doing is actually sort of putting a heavier and a brighter and a bigger target on both Jalen and Zeke, because a lot of Cowboys fans, most Cowboys fans, hear statements like that and they laugh and they say, "Are you serious, Jerry? What are you watching?" etc. And then you turn Jalen or you turn Zeke into the meme. And that's really unfair because they're already dealing with a lot of issues. As mentioned, Ezekiel Elliott fumbled in this game. It was his 6th fumble this season, his 5th fumble loss. Shout out to DeMarcus Lawrence, who saved that drive for the Dallas Cowboys defense, stopped what probably would have been a touchdown and made Washington kick a field goal out of it. And so, again, you say those things, they blow up in your face, and it looks really bad. So to answer the question, what do I think is the reason for Zeke's fumbles? I don't know. I mean, it's funny because, and you might remember this, after the Cowboys played the Rams, when we had our postgame show then, we all talked about, kind of during that game in week 1, it looked, and there was no sort of data to support this, but it looked like Ezekiel Elliott was just running better. I mean, and again, super general take there, but it looked like he was running, like his rookie self. It looked like he had sort of regained that form. And so I know, at least myself in that game, in that moment, I was really excited about who Zeke Elliott was going to be in 2020, but it just feels like there's just been this cloud that follows the Cowboys in different ways. And it has focused on Zeke a lot, 6 times at least with regards to the fumbles. But we've seen the Cowboys seemingly have a willingness, I don't want to say to bench Zeke or to bench Jalen, but to go to different options. And I think that's important. And those types of things still give me hope for Mike McCarthy. But man, this game was really, really, really bad in a lot of ways. Let's look at the final statistics from this game. Not the most indicative of things, but again, the Washington football team winning 41-16, having 338 total offensive yards to the Dallas Cowboys 247. They averaged 5.1 yards per play. The Dallas Cowboys only averaging 4.3 yards per play. Washington with only 1 turnover on the day, the Jalen Smith interception. Meanwhile, the Dallas Cowboys had 2 interceptions, the Zeke fumble, the Andy Dalton interception near the end. Washington held the ball for over 35 minutes in this game, just shy of 36 minutes. The Dallas Cowboys couldn't sustain a lot on offense. 24 minutes and 4 seconds, their total time of possession. Brad on YouTube says that I am bugging and that Tony Pollard is not better. Look, that's a really subjective term and a really subjective way to put it, that Tony Pollard's better, but there is no question that Tony Pollard has looked far more explosive than Ezekiel Elliott has for most of this season. It's possible that Ezekiel Elliott is still going to be a legitimate running back in the NFL, but right now Tony Pollard looks more explosive. And what leans people and a lot of Cowboys fans to the Tony Pollard side of that debate is that Tony Pollard is on the 2nd year of a rookie contract while Ezekiel Elliott has gotten paid a lot of money, and that's the crux of the running backs don't matter argument, is that is the most easily replaceable position in the NFL, and Tony Pollard is kind of proving that. I think it should be said that the Dallas Cowboys obviously have had a lot of success against the Washington franchise. Prior to 2020, obviously the Washington football team, their rebranded name for this season, the Dallas Cowboys have never beaten the Washington football team. Think about that. The Dallas Cowboys have never beaten the Washington football team. Ron Rivera has now beaten the Cowboys twice on Thanksgiving Day. He was the head coach of the Carolina Panthers in 2015. They stormed in there. They beat the Cowboys pretty well. That was actually Tony Romo's last start for the Dallas Cowboys. Jim Nantz was incidentally on the call with Phil Simms up in the booth. But so Ron Rivera gets another laugh against the Cowboys, and he has beaten the Cowboys twice this season. What do you say? What do you say to that? I did find this interesting. This is one of my own tweets. You can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at RJ Ochoa. As mentioned, the Detroit Lions just, again, looked even worse than the Dallas Cowboys earlier today, which is a hard thing to do. But they did. They lost to the Houston Texans. The last time that the Lions and Texans met in Detroit, because it alternates, obviously, every 4 years, was actually in 2012, 8 years ago. The last time they met in Detroit was on Thanksgiving, just like it was today. That's what I meant to say. Words are hard sometimes. So the last two times the Texans and Lions have played in Detroit, it has come on Thanksgiving Day. That Thanksgiving Day in 2012, the Dallas Cowboys hosted the Washington football team. They lost to the Washington football team. In fact, 2012 was the last time that Dallas was swept by Washington. Today's loss to the Washington football team cemented the fact that the Dallas Cowboys will have been swept by the Washington football franchise for the first time in 8 years. A rather embarrassing point for these Cowboys, but that's kind of par for the course at this point, right? You know, Steve on YouTube says Giants taking the NFC East. Steve has a Giants logo as his avatar, so it's kind of hard to understand his fandom here. I think that there's a legitimate case for that. I thought, a week ago, I thought that the Giants were going to lose this Sunday against the Bengals, but obviously Joe Burrow's season-ending injury has really dramatically altered that. So I think that there's a very legitimate case that the Giants are going to win the NFC East. I don't know that I believe in Washington long-term. The Giants still get to play the Cowboys in New York for what it's worth, and I think that Week 17 game could be, for the Giants at least, a win and you get the NFC East type thing, a hat and T-shirt game, to use the proverbial terms. So, I think this is Washington's at this point. I think Philly is so far out of this. If you think about it, Philadelphia's next 4 games. On Monday night, they host the Seattle Seahawks. Next Sunday, they visit the Green Bay Packers. The week after that, they host the New Orleans Saints. And the week after that, they visit the Arizona Cardinals. So it's about to be tough sledding for the Philadelphia Eagles. But speaking of remaining schedules, let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys. They are now 3-8. Again, as mentioned, 7 days from now. In fact, 7 days exactly from right now. A game is scheduled, I should say, to take place between the Dallas Cowboys and Baltimore Ravens on Thursday Night Football. A week and a half after that, after the Cowboys get a little bit of a mini bye, they will visit the Joe Burrow-less Cincinnati Bengals themselves in Week 14. A week after that, they return home to host the San Francisco 49ers. That game is scheduled to be played on Sunday Night Football. The penultimate week of the regular season for the Dallas Cowboys is a home contest against the Philadelphia Eagles. Maybe the only team the Cowboys are better than right now. And finally, as mentioned in Week 17, the Cowboys visit the Big Apple. Welcome to New York. Shout out to Taylor Swift. She's like recording all her songs again right now. I can't even imagine how arduous of a process that would be. But it's probably more fun than watching the Dallas Cowboys in 2020. But with regards to next Thursday night's game against the Baltimore Ravens, a bit of news coming out as the Cowboys game was coming to a conclusion. Actually, right now, as you and I are talking on our live show, the Baltimore Ravens were set to be kicking off on the road against the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers. That game was postponed to Sunday afternoon because of a lot of issues related to COVID-19, obviously. There have been several postponements so far this season, and the Baltimore Ravens-Pittsburgh Steelers game was the latest one to get postponed to Sunday. This, of course, has an impact on the Dallas Cowboys, as the Cowboys will visit the Ravens next week. As it currently stands in this moment, and I haven't looked at Twitter since we have all been talking here, but the Cowboys are scheduled to have a full week's worth of rest, while the Ravens will be coming off of a short week, having visited the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday. However, the status of that game seems to be up in the air. I mentioned it as the Cowboys game was coming to a close. It was reported first by NFL Network's Ian Rappaport that Baltimore Ravens star quarterback Lamar Jackson has tested positive for COVID-19. I believe in the time that I was preparing everything for this show, it was announced that several other members of the Ravens have tested positive. First and foremost, our thoughts go out towards the Baltimore Ravens organization. We want everybody to be healthy. We want everybody to be ready. We want everybody to be safe. But it does seem as if this Sunday's game between the Ravens and Steelers is in legitimate jeopardy, which I think would push next Thursday's game between the Cowboys and the Ravens into jeopardy itself. If the Ravens and Steelers are going to make up that game, say on Monday night, say on Tuesday night, whatever the case ends up being, again, Lamar Jackson's status now is an important qualifier in that discussion. It might push the Cowboys game. Now, The Cowboys-Ravens game is scheduled to take place on Thursday night. We have seen the NFL have a pattern really of no consistency when it comes to things like this. There was a lot of discussion about the San Francisco 49ers, how the NFL made them play when they had a lot of positive cases. And so it remains to be seen how the NFL wants to handle this with regards.com on our social channels and everything as more information on this becomes available. If something has come, I don't know what to say about the Cowboys against the Washington football team. It was really embarrassing how the Cowboys just got destroyed. Let's see here. Brad on YouTube says, Dez got paid. Fans, he sucks. D-Law gets paid. Fans, he sucks. Romo got paid. Fans, he sucks. Pardon me if I'm tired of hearing our fan base talk about what players are getting paid. I mean, look, if people want to talk about players get paid, it's always a matter of interest. When Dez Bryant and Tony Romo got their last contracts, the unfortunate reality was that they got hurt shortly after, and so those contracts looked bad in that respect. There is so much hate and so much slander for DeMarcus Lawrence. I don't understand it myself. DeMarcus Lawrence is awesome, and people kind of harp on sack numbers and things like that. And DeMarcus Lawrence doesn't have those, but DeMarcus Lawrence was just a force in this game. If you watched the Dallas-Washington game on Thanksgiving Day and you were not insanely impressed by what DeMarcus Lawrence does for the Dallas Cowboys defense, I don't know who you are. At this point, I mention this every week on our postgame show. I do winners and losers after every Cowboys game at bloggingtheboys.com. I haven't written that yet, spoiler alert, but I guarantee you that DeMarcus Lawrence is going to be one of my winners. And when I look at losers in this game, I think Mike McCarthy's a loser. And again, we use that term generally. Don't want to be mean to people. But this was the worst coached game that Mike McCarthy has had as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Who are your losers? I'm curious. I think Kellen Moore is a loser. Kellen Moore looked in over his head in this game, and it's hard to do that, especially against a team as bad as Washington. But man, I really don't know what Kellen Moore was thinking. Chidobe Awuzie had the issue himself where he was taken off the field by the NFL officials, but not really a great game. People are very quick to jump to Jalen Smith. I think that Jalen played an okay game, honestly. I wouldn't have Jalen Smith as a loser. I think Zeke Elliott is in that camp, unfortunately, again, because of the fumble, because of the lack of consistency, because of the fact that Tony Pollard still looked more explosive than he did. I don't know what you do if you're the Dallas Cowboys. I think at this point, and a lot of it depends on what happens next week, obviously within the NFC East. But I think if you have been on the fence as a Cowboys fan, do I want them to tank? Do I want them to win the NFC East? At this point, and this is obvious, but tanking is clearly a better option. And if you're going to stay rooting for the Cowboys, another game, to be honest with you. And I'm really just sad for the Minnesota Vikings that they did lose to this game, or to this team just 4 days ago. Raudel Garcia says, please tell me there's no chance of winning this division. Honestly, there is a chance. That's the crazy and maybe frustrating part. But again, look at this remaining schedule if you're a Cowboys fan. The Baltimore game, and again, the status of Lamar Jackson is going to go a long way in terms of what that game ends up being for both Baltimore and for Dallas. But right now, I think we'd all give the Ravens that game, even if it's Robert Griffin III, who, by the way, was the last Washington quarterback to sweep the Dallas Cowboys in 2012 when it last happened. So some funny symmetry there. Maybe he is the one playing for Baltimore next week. But after that, I could honestly see the Cowboys, if we see and this sounds super lame, but if we see the Cowboys that play really well, but if we see the Cowboys that played against the Minnesota Vikings, if we see them against Cincinnati, if we see them against San Francisco, if we see them against Philadelphia, if we see them against New York, they can win all four of those games. I don't think in any world. I think if you do the Doctor Strange, what is it like? I looked into the future like 7 million times, or whatever, and we won once, right? Like there's one scenario of the 7 million where the Cowboys beat the Ravens. So that's why it's like astronomically impossible. But I think if you look at the Bengals situation, if you like simulate that 7 million times, I think the Cowboys win like 3 million of those. I think the Cowboys win like 2.7 million against the 49ers. I think the Cowboys win like 5 million against the Eagles. I think the Cowboys maybe kind of split, 3.5 million. What's 3.5 million really anyway, with the New York Giants? And so it could go a number of different ways. But they're not out of this. They're not out of this. And whatever happens, we will, of course, again, as mentioned, have you covered at bloggingtheboys.com. Your home for Dallas Cowboys content, the best Dallas Cowboys content on the web, SB Nation's home for the Dallas Cowboys. Make sure to subscribe right here to the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. We've really had a lot of fun with these live streams. We're going to keep doing them. We're going to keep having our podcasts up here. We're going to keep doing film reviews, whatever you want. In fact, if there's something you want to see, if there's something you want us to do or talk about, let us know. I am on Twitter and Instagram at RJOchoa. That's RJOCHOA. If email is more your thing, you can hit me up, rj.ochoa@sbnation.com. We have a fantastic podcast network. We put out an episode every 12 hours because we know that things are constantly changing in the world of the Dallas Cowboys. We are available on all major podcast platforms. Wherever you get your podcasts, search for Blogging the Boys, leave a rating, write a review. You'll get to hear them. It'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, I mean, that kind of does it because the Dallas Cowboys are 3-8, and they are about as close to a top 3 draft pick as they are to winning the NFC East. And so that's just kind of the way this season has gone. But look, it's Thanksgiving, and at the end of all this, we hope that you and your family, whoever you have spent the day with, that you have had a happy Thanksgiving. I say this all the time, but I truly mean it from the bottom of my heart. We are so grateful to you who chooses to make Blogging the Boys a part of your Dallas Cowboys fan experience. At the end of the day, we all love the Dallas Cowboys. We all want the Dallas Cowboys to win. We all want to see the Dallas Cowboys win a Super Bowl. We are all extremely passionate about the Dallas Cowboys. And while this season has not been a lot of fun, it is kind of the sickest thing in the world that we can all jump on here and share that love with one another. And so on this day of Thanksgiving, I am so thankful and so appreciative to all of you who take time to consume our content, to engage with us, to talk about America's team, because we all want the same thing. And talking about it, discussing it, debating it at times is really, and doing it amongst friends like we all are, it is the best thing that you can do with all this. And so we're very thankful for you. We hope you have a great Thanksgiving weekend. Enjoy, enjoy whatever you've got going on. Hopefully you get a chance to Netflix something. Watch the Queen's Gambit. It was fun. Maybe it'll distract you from this Cowboys situation. But the Ravens game is a situation to watch that we will keep you updated with at bloggingtheboys.com. But that does it for our post-game show. Do me a favor. Do me a huge favor. Do me a huge favor, all right? Have the absolute best Thanksgiving weekend of all time. You know why? Because you deserve it. We will see you mañana, my friends. As always, go Cowboys and peace out.
Fucking the boys.